Thank you for joining us for this QuickBooks Enterprise landed cost feature review. So today we're going to be covering QuickBooks Enterprise landed cost feature for our webinar today. I'm going to talk all about what that is, where to find it, how to use it, kind of go through the steps before we get started with that. I wanted to share what the 4 uniques are about working with Fourlane. For us, we don't just deal with QuickBooks, we also deal with NetSuite, Xero, Acumatica, and we are a value-added reseller for those, meaning that we're solutions-oriented, that we want to help you find the right accounting solution for your business and help you fully utilize that as well. So not just QuickBooks focused, but we will be focusing on QuickBooks Enterprise today. So we're also experts in accounting and software. Other firms in this ERP space are typically either IT focused or accounting focused, one or the other, but not both. We tie both of those things together for our clients. Then we're also ERP consultants, helping you maximize QuickBooks. So we want to dispel the myth that you're outgrowing QuickBooks. That's often not the case. The ERP jump to ERP can often be very expensive. And so we want to help our clients make sure that they're using their current product to its full potential and that we've clearly identified that there's actually a need for going to an ERP solution right prior to that. So we do have processes in place to assist with that. And then we're also a strategic partner for change management. So we help to empower your team with new processes to get the business functioning and reporting in a consistent and accurate way. Right, so we understand change can be stressful, for you, for the business owners, for the staff as well. We're very experienced with helping facilitate that change and make it go as smoothly as possible and get folks comfortable and up and running. Right? Formula for success here, we do have a full suite of services. You'll see towards the center, data-driven decision making, helping drive your business forward. This is where we want you to get to. So our mindset is usually focused on how can we help you capture accurate data, and then how does that flow into the reports you're using for the business. So we don't have to go into all of these in depth. I'm just going to touch on them so that you can understand a little bit about some of the services we have, but also some of the processes involved with data-driven decision making. So we have processes, documentation and training, financial reporting and review, database review and repair, ERP readiness for when you have outgrown QuickBooks, custom reports and programming, product conversion, how to make the leap to a different product once we've identified there's the need, software management, and then KPI advisory for those key performance indicators. Again, we want clients to be successful, right? This is our formula. Let's get to that data-driven decision making. Okay, so landed costs, the feature that we're going to be covering today with QuickBooks Enterprise. And here, as I get started too, just a reminder on questions. Questions are welcome. We'll cover as many of those during the webinar here today that we can. Please go ahead and submit those questions. And then if there are any that we don't get to by the time we're through here today, we'll reach out to you separately after the webinar's ended and make sure you get answers for those questions. So don't hesitate. So landed costs, right? What are landed costs? So it's the total cost to get inventory or components to the warehouse, right? Including freight, insurance, duties, taxes, tariffs, whatever the case may be, right? What's that total cost for getting our inventory from our vendors to the warehouse? So utilizing landed costs provides greater visibility into actual inventory costs, and it allows for a built-in check and balance to see if the business is recouping those costs, right? So are we charging everything that it's costing us to get these goods? Are we recouping that from our customers? And then last, landed costs is a feature that's available in QuickBooks Enterprise Platinum subscription level as part of the advanced inventory module. So if you're interested in this and you don't see it with your current QuickBooks Enterprise subscription, just reach out to us and we can help you with with making sure that you've got that platinum level and getting you started with it. All right, so we're going to walk through some of this here in just a moment, but some key initial steps to get started using landed costs. Right, we're going to want to set up a new general ledger account. It's an other current asset type account, and name it for landed cost use. Then we're going to set up items to use for landed costs using an other charge item type. So initial setup. And then we're going to want to turn on that landed cost feature also, which you go to Edit, Preferences, Items in Inventory, Company Preferences, Advanced Inventory Settings, and then landed costs. Right? So I'm going to take us to a QuickBooks file that we have here, right? And we're going to walk through some of this. So we've got, I mentioned chart of accounts. Here's where you're going to want to set up this landed cost account. Now I've labeled this landed cost clearing as my account name. You'll see here that we have account type, other current asset. So that's our type. Here you could name it what's pertinent to you for your business, but we want to just clearly identify it that this is what we're going to be using for landed costs, right? Then we're going to look at setting up our items, right? So if I've just got minimal information here, so we don't have a lot of noise or clutter as we walk through some of this. And also, I've also got Lori Walsh. She's another partner here with the firm that where I'm going to be getting some of her feedback periodically through here. She's worked extensively as well with clients working through landed costs and some of their workflows. So I'd like to reach out and get her input here and there, so you'll hear her occasionally. So we have our item lists. I've just set up decorative rocks as an inventory part, right? Rock containers as an inventory assembly. And here's where I've set up that landed cost, right? Here's a landed cost. It's the other charge type is how it needs to be. And then I've just labeled it landed cost freight. And I've checked here that this item is used in assemblies or is a reimbursable charge. And I've gone ahead and mapped it here under expense account. I've gone ahead and used that landed cost clearing account. My income account, right? This is not going to hit that, but I just used a shipping income account. So here's the setup that we've got for the item that we're going to use for landed costs. Now, when we go to our bills, I've got a couple of examples here just to show you, just to walk you through how this works. I've gone into our vendor. We've got our test vendor here. We've called Rock Supplier. I've used the landed cost freight. That item, I've got that set at $1,500. So I've just gone in and put this as if we received this as, a bill from a vendor for shipping charge. This could be something else. This could be maybe insurance. Oftentimes people have to pay additional insurance for things that come in for rail freight or different scenarios like that. So you may have different applications for it, where I want to record insurance or some of the other things we touched on initially, like taxes, duties, tariffs, right? Works the same. I just have this set up here for freight. Right. Then I've got from my rock supplier, this is where I've actually gotten the decorative rocks, quantity of 5. Here's the cost. Right. So here's where I'm receiving those actual items. I've got my bill in for that. So we're making the assumption here that those things have taken place. I've recorded my freight charges. I've recorded my items. I've got those. And you'll see here where we've got calculate landed costs here. So when I click this, and again, we will have turned on this feature, right? I'm going to add bills. And you're going to see here that this $1,500 freight charge bill, right, that I had put in here's where we see that, and it says it's indicating it's unallocated at this time. Okay, so that's the bill that I'm going to add. That brings up this screen that shows this is going to say, here's how I want to add it. So I can choose by quantity, and then that's going to split this across my quantity of 5. I can choose here a percentage, and I can change this percentage that I want it to allocate. I can change it to amount, so I'm just going to use this full amount. And then I can manually change it here if I want to adjust it here. So, Lori, can you tell me I know you've got some client examples with some folks you've really helped with this feature.
Yes. So, and thanks for letting me be part of the webinar with you today. So I have a couple of different types of clients. One of them actually sells wine. And so because they are bringing in wine from US vineyards as well as some from overseas, they will actually use this not just for the duties and tariffs, but actually the freight to get it from one location to the other. It allows them to get the actual cost of each bottle. And then that in turn allows them to have a better, because I mean, obviously, you know, we want to make sure that we're making money on each bottle we sell, so they can actually set their margins and have a more realistic margin because they know what the actual cost for each bottle is. I also have some that utilize it in the manufacturing side too for the raw material, because a lot of that, right, we have to bring it in from different places, and so they can get those raw materials captured in this way, and then whenever they actually do the assemblies, it's already in there. So then they have a better idea of the costs for those products as well. So it definitely helps.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Yep. So again, let's take a look within your business, right, and see how would we use this landed cost feature, make sure we're recouping things, capturing everything. Good example, Lori. Thank you.
Welcome.
So for this, I'm just going to choose amount here, fairly straightforward, and I'm going to click post to bill. Here I'm just choosing that bill, and this is saying that it's going to update that new selling price, right? Landed cost, just like it says here, landed cost updated successfully. To update the selling price based on the calculated landed cost and markup, right? Enter the value in new selling price and update. Right, so this is the original selling landed costs, now $350. Right, so here I'm going to go ahead and update that. So I want to update and proceed. Okay. So now this has updated that amount. So you can see here, and right here it says includes landed costs. Now you see that annotated here on this bill, that it includes landed costs. So you can choose there if you're going to update that, you're going to update that item. Let's go over here to our item list, right? And then I'm going to look at decorative rocks, right? Now, when you do go ahead and you make that choice, like for that one, I did not change it, right? Here, it's going to say that it's updated with landed costs if it is. So let's just go back to another bill here. I'm sorry, where I said we would update landed costs. Here I'm going to remove them. Yep. I'm going to save it. Yep. And then I'm going to go back and calculate landed costs. I want to show you all these different options. Now it's a little bit different when you're working in it. Right? Now I want to add my bills, and you'll see here it's back to unallocated. I click this here. I'll just go through this again. Not that I mean to be repetitive, folks, but if you haven't worked with it before, right, it doesn't hurt to do some test pieces initially so that you're well familiar with the process and you understand the impact. right? Because your inventory valuation reports will be updated to reflect the new average cost if we're changing that. So we want to make sure, right, that you, when you start working with this, you've got a full understanding so you don't have anything that goes off track. So I'm back to amount. I've gone here. I'm going to post to bill, decorative rock. Okay, so now I'm going to make my new selling here 350. Obtain proceed. Right, shows it's updated. There we go. Includes landed costs. Okay, so the inventory valuation summary that I mentioned, right, when we go here, inventory valuation summary, right, we want to make sure that this, you'll see here, the sales price, right, we want to make sure that you understand that this is going to change. So the average cost is actually going to change when you update that using landed costs, which is what we want, right? That's what we want. But just have that understanding that's going to be reflected also on this inventory valuation summary as well as the item. And then I guess one other note about that would be to make sure that we don't have anything that's going off track. We can actually go into Reconcile here because we can reconcile our balance sheet accounts, most of them. So here we'd be able to reconcile. I'll just put this in as a starting here. And you can see here bills over here, right? This is one of the things that this account, you'll start to see the ins and outs go through this. It's one of the reasons we set it up as a balance sheet account rather than P&L, is because then you can actually go in and reconcile these going forward to make sure that everything is lining up and we don't have anything that hasn't been allocated. We want to make sure that things have been allocated correctly. Again, the goal is to recoup all the costs that's involved with getting our inventory from point A to point B. So this you can go in and reconcile, and we usually recommend that you do that each month. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lori, can you tell me any instances where you've had folks that's worked well for to use that reconciliation feature?
Yes. So the reason, in fact, that's why we picked the balance sheet account over putting it on the P&L, because it may take 2 to 3 months if they have products coming in from overseas for all those bills to come in. And they were able to keep up with the reconciliations. They actually do theirs weekly because of the quantity of business they have. But they were able to catch a couple of instances where the adding that landed cost to the inventory was missed. And so when you do the reconciliation, it just shows you, right, once you close it out or once you reconcile it, right, it shows that what's still open. And when they started researching those, it came to light which ones were missed. So it's, in my opinion, one of the more crucial things, right? Just like bank reconciliations, it's something that needs to be done. So definitely beneficial.
Yeah, and you've worked with a lot of manufacturing clients as well, right, that have had to deal with a lot of that, and especially, right, with different business changes. I know last year where a lot of folks had a lot of stock that was stuck in shipping. And then this became pretty critical. Then I think you worked through a number of situations with clients, helping them adapt to some of those business changes with all the delays in shipping, right?
Yes, we did. In fact, that's when we noticed a lot more changes and were able to implement, because originally landed cost was more for overseas shipments, right? But as the costs and the supply chain issues and all of that occurred, and we definitely saw a bunch of that, and still are, right? But there was a big push there for a long time where there was, I mean, everything was just kind of in limbo. And this became really crucial because as those freight charges went up, people didn't even know all that they were paying. So it goes back to the data-driven decision making that you shared at the beginning, because once we started looking at those freight costs and realizing that those were getting really out of hand and that the product itself did not, didn't capture it when it should have, then we were able to use this, and because it does automate it quite a bit and keep up with it for us, we were able to get them back in a better position to sell the product at a better price based on the actual cost, not just the base cost.
Gotcha. Yeah, absolutely. I also know that there was a number of clients impacted with the cost of fuel when that was going up. And then previously, they were not as concerned about those fuel surcharges, right? But a lot of companies started adding some very large fuel surcharges to their shipments, or their, trucking shipments and that. So that really became crucial for them to track those. And then how do I make sure that I'm passing on that cost accurately and it's not getting missed in the workflows and things like that. So I know the fuel was another big one. I think we've seen a number of those, haven't we, Lori? That's been, fuel was a huge impact.
Well, and even and even their supply, and not just the fuel, but some of that too. If the vendor that they're buying from is slow, right? What do they have to do if they have to buy from another vendor that they weren't expecting? So there's a lot of different factors for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a good point. Yep. So the idea here, folks, then is to think about how could you use this for your business, right? How could I adapt this and really help me to recoup costs? I just want to show you here, edit, preferences. I just want to show you how we get to this, right? I think I missed that in the beginning, so sorry about that, folks. But it's edit, preferences, and we want to go to items in inventory, company preferences. We go to advanced inventory settings, and then here, this tab is landed costs. Here's where you set that up, and you can see we've got landed cost clearing account. That's that general ledger account we set up. Here we've got one expense item that's mapped to that. That's that landed cost item. And that's all it takes is that initial setup, those three key things that I mentioned. Set up the general ledger account, set up the items for landed costs, whatever those are, and then go into your feature here, make sure that that's enabled. That's all we need to do. Right? So chart of accounts, our items, and then when we're entering our bills, we're just going to make sure that we're entering our bills for our shipping here, our freight, insurance, taxes, whatever the case might be, right? And then we're being careful about our decisions with updating then that cost and subsequently the sales price, understanding that that inventory valuation report will reflect that as well. And we can go back to that just to focus, right? So the takeaways, three important things. The edit item window will have a new field called landed cost, which displays that new item cost in the item itself. The inventory valuation reports will be updated to reflect the new average cost. And the landed cost account should be reconciled each month as part of the month-end close process. So three key takeaways there, right?
And Beth, we do have one question. We've answered this, but this person came in a little bit late and missed the beginning part of it. But the question is this something that is available with the advanced inventory only? And so if you want to, I know you just went in there, but if you don't mind, can you go back and show them where they can find that on the advanced inventory tab?
Yep, so we want to go here to edit, and then preferences, items in inventory, company preferences. Then we go to advanced inventory settings. And here you have the other features of advanced inventory, right? Multiple inventory sites, serial and lot number, and expirations, first in, first out, barcodes, site operations, and all that. And then we have landed cost is this last tab over here. And that's where you would click to enable that. Yeah. Have we had Have we had any other questions?
Not at this time, no. So I think you've done a very good job of explaining it. And I think too, right, just thinking about it differently, because when all of the supply chain issues, which is again where I think I started thinking a little differently about it, but just as a whole, for anybody that's listening, just thinking about it a little differently than the standard, right? How can I use this? And you mentioned that too, Beth, when you were saying, how do we look at this to make sure that everything's included, right? And so assessing how your inventory is, because it is definitely more for most of us, it's more than what we pay at because if you look at what you buy at the grocery store, for instance, there's a lot of different factors that go into that one can of beans or corn or something. So just looking at your inventory to see what you can, add, because it is part of the actual cost, will help you get that, a better cost, which is what we want.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's often overlooked, and it's an often overlooked feature. That's one of the reasons we wanted to cover it today, to just give you an idea on what it is, where to find this feature. Right, again, it's in QuickBooks Enterprise Platinum is the level of subscription for that advanced inventory. And so that's where to find it. It's how to turn it on. These are all the basics for how to use it. Right now, of course, if there's further questions that you have, we can be of assistance. You'd like to get our input or recommendations, feel free to reach out if you want to talk about how to apply it to your specific business or how this might help you. Of course, we're always here to be of service. Right? So here's our key takeaways again. Right, just one more time. Right, the edit item window will have a new field called landed costs, which will display the new item cost. The inventory valuation reports will be updated to reflect the new average cost. And that landed cost account should be reconciled each month as part of the month-end close process, just to make sure that we're keeping everything on point. Just to make sure we're not missing anything, there hasn't been something unallocated. Okay, so next for our webinar, the next topic for next week will be a sales tax feature in QuickBooks Enterprise. The week after that, we have why does it matter how large a desktop file is? We get that question a lot, don't we, Lori? It's
Yes, we do.
Why does that even matter? So we're going to help try to answer some questions about that. And then, of course, please tell us what else would you like to learn? Right? What are things that are important to you that you'd like for us to cover on one of our webinars? We'll do our best. Most of these that we cover in our webinars are things that we've had brought up by clients such as yourself, giving us recommendations on, hey, can you please tell us more about this? So we'd appreciate it. And then also feel free to check out our YouTube channel. We have a lot of videos there. There's over 200. We're adding more every day to try and get you more information. Right, there is some in older QuickBooks, but the concepts still stand. Right? The basics and foundational pieces still apply. Right, and you can also follow us on Facebook. Our Facebook group is Fourlane QuickBooks Enterprise. So I hope you found our webinar useful today. Thanks again for joining us, everyone. Really appreciate your attendance. Appreciate the feedback, and let us know what you'd like for us to cover next. Or as always, let us know if we can be of service.